and welcome to my channel. My name is Lauren and I am a full-time Pilates instructor in London. Today we're going to be looking at different Reformer Pilates qualifications and which ones are actually worth it. We're going to go through all of the big ones that I've seen, as well as distinguishing the difference between examining bodies and accreditation, and if you want to teach internationally as well, things like that, which is best to go for. I did make a while back a video about things to consider if you want to become a Pilates instructor, so if you haven't checked that one out, I will link it down below, so feel free to watch. So today we're going to be breaking down what accredited actually means, how many hours you really get on your educations, the differences between the main providers, how much is online versus in person, how often the courses run, and whether some of the more independent or non-accredited paths are still worth it. By the end, my hope is that you'll have a much better idea of which education is the right one for you. So the first thing to clarify is every single Reformer education that I have seen requires you to have your MAT education first. Some will accept your PT certification or other level 3 certifications, which are essentially just a leveling system in the UK for different health, fitness and sports related certifications. With that being said, the word certification, that is the thing that you actually receive at the end. So your level 3 Reformer Pilates teacher or your dynamic Reformer instructor, comprehensive Pilates instructor, and so on and so forth. Whereas your accreditation or your endorsement is who says that the course meets a standard in the UK. So that's usually a regulated awarding body like Active IQ, YMCA or VTCT. And then you've got the professional standards, which is the SIMSPA endorsement. And then you've also got recognised methods and branding systems like STOTT or BASI or Club Pilates. So you can think of it as the Active IQ, the YMCA, your awarding bodies. If you look at it like schools, they are your EdXL, your AQA, your OCR. Your certification is the school you do it with, so your London High School for boys or London High School for girls. And then the SIMSPA is kind of like the national curriculum. And then your recognized brands and systems like STOTT and BASI, they are maybe like your private school. They've got such a recognized name that people know and trust it. In the UK, it's important to remember that Pilates is not a regulated industry. Yes, there are regulating bodies, but when it's not a regulated industry, that means you don't legally need to have qualifications to teach it. So there are examples of where you might not go through a recognized body, and we'll go into that a little bit more at the end. Most people, however, will go through a SIMSPA or awarding body logo that will help with getting your insurance and getting work, or for example those BASI or STOTT or Polestar logos, which have very strong recognition in studios, and they might value that kind of lineage or method a little bit more. An accredited logo does not mean that all the courses are the same. Some are weekend only, some are 500 hours. You just have to kind of read into the structure. It just essentially means it meets a certain criteria that you are safe to teach. Two courses can both say SIMSPA endorsed or YMCA awards and be completely different in the practical hours, the supervised teaching and teach back, the self-practice expectation, and the depth that the assessment goes into. So instead of just asking yourself of is it accredited, you can ask how many hours are there of in-person teaching and can you do them, online and home study, and then do you need to practice teaching on other humans on a Reformer. Second part is, will insurers and studios accept it? If it is one of the big bodies that I mentioned before, then the answer is yes. And then your third point is, do you think you'll be safe and confident to teach real clients after that? If you know all of that, then that sets us up perfectly to dive into slightly more specifics. Regarding the hours, many UK accredited Reformer add-ons, you're going to have to work 60 to 130 total study hours. It does vary a lot, but it is going to be within that realm. Mostly it's going to be a few days in person, plus a bit of self-study, plus a logbook. So a lot of educations are going to ask you to attend a lot of other people's Reformer classes. Some might even ask you to log that you've taught a certain amount of other classes, be it group or one-on-ones. So from here, we're going to go into a few of the main bodies and just compare them bit by bit. There's no wrong and right here, it is just whatever works for you. So you've got your HFE, which is your UK regulated blended route. It is a YMCA awards and EMD UK endorsed, which has a lot of recognition in the UK. The former is blended, so it's got a little bit of in-person and it's got supported home study, and then you've got 4 days in person at regional venues. And the regional venues is an important part if you're not in London, because HFE is one of those ones that is kind of everywhere over the UK, so you probably have one close to you. Cost as of November 2025 is between £850 and £895, and it is 8 to 12 weeks. Percent-wise of in-person versus online, you're going to have about 25 to 35% of your course in person, and the rest through online modules. You're going to receive manuals and then practice hours. It doesn't actually say how many official hours you need to do, including things like attending other classes and teaching other people, but it does say that you're going to have the majority of your theory at home, and then you've got your contact teaching, which is the 4 days, and then a couple of practice days and teach backs. There are frequent intakes at different venues across the UK, so it's probably just best to look where's closest to you. It will suit you if you want a credible, affordable UK add-on to your mat and you're ready to do those extra self hours of practice. Number 2 is your diverse trainers. So this is one that I haven't seen before I did the research for this video. So I knew they did mat and a lot of other certifications, but the Reformer must be relatively recent. It is accredited by the YMCA and regulated frameworks, and it's going to be a mix of online and in person. With diverse trainers, you can actually do the entire thing online if you've got a Reformer. For those of you who don't live close to educations, you might actually already have the Reformer, so that might work really well for you, and maybe you're planning on doing one-on-ones. So that might be a really good option if you struggle to get into a city to do an in-person one. The cost, so they do have rolling promos, things like combined mat and Reformer, and then they often have discounts, so it's going to be somewhere between £750 to £1,000, and then it's 4 to 6 weeks, but you have up to 2 years to complete it, so you don't have to do it within that frame because most of it is online. You can kind of do it at your own pace. So the majority of this one is e-learning. There is very little time in person, but for some people it is going to be a good option. It is the relatively cheap option, and if you're self-motivated and you have difficulty accessing cities, but you have a Reformer at home, then it might actually be a really great option. Because it's online, it is hard to know exactly how many hours they're expecting you to do. All we've got listed here is the 2 days of live or virtual training. Number 3, Drummond Education. So this one is YMCA, EMD accredited, and typically you're going to have 4 in-person days plus 40 hours of your own practice, so either taking other people's Reformer classes or teaching other people's. And then they do different packages, so if you combine it with different things like MAT or another certification, it can be as little as £1,245, but it can actually cost up to £2,300, so it really depends on your package. On their website it states that it is 24 hours of in-person teaching, so 3 days, 40 hours of logged practice plus 1 assessment day, 72 hours of really kind of measured hours, plus all of your online learning for things like your anatomy and physiology. It is a set cohorts intake, so you can't just kind of join in whenever you like, but there are quite a few dates per year. This one is a little bit more demanding than the previous 2, but it is a little bit of a midpoint between, say, the quick certifications and maybe the longer ones, like the sort of big brand ones, as we'll call them. 4, London Pilates Academy. This is one of the ones I get asked about the most. I think they've probably just got their SEO on point, and when you type in London Pilates certification, I think this is probably the first one that comes up, and this is one of the ones where I've met the most instructors from. So their accreditation, they are fully SIMSPA accredited. directly with SimSpa, and they really are focusing on taking in mat instructors. You have 4 days in the studio plus 1 day of assessments, so 127 hours is what it says on the site that you have to do, and the cost is £1,300. In person, you're having about 40 hours, and then the remaining 80-90 hours is going to be your self-directed practice prep and online work, so about 70-30%. They've got locations both in London and York, and they've got multiple dates across the year. Again, it is an education where it's set a cohort, so you can't just flexibly drop in whenever you like, so just keep an eye on the website. Number 5, we have got 10 Education. So this is actually dynamic reformer. So the previous ones are all contemporary. 10 Education is your dynamic reformer. It is Active IQ endorsed. It is also SimSpa accredited and recognized, of course. And then you've got 8 practical training days, which is 48 live hours. And then you've got an online learning portal. You are expected to self-study online, but they do cover a lot of their theory in their course. The cost of this one is £1,450, and you've got 48 hours, as I said, in person, and then additional unspecific self-practice teach-back hours expected, but not as formally logged as BASI or STOTT, where you have to get it like physically signed off. So how much online versus in-person? You can essentially say that it's 100% in-person because there's no demand of you online. You've got a portal with your online tools, which is support, but it's not the expectation that you do all of that work at home. They have several cohorts a year, I think every 2 or 3 months. One is good if you do prefer to do it all in person, if you're not very good at self-study, and also if you favour dynamic reformer on its own. You do also need to have your MAT level 3, but I know that they also accept Dance Education or T level 3. STOTT Pilates, this is one of the big brand ones. So the intensive reformer is accredited through Meridian STOTT Global Method, which is going to be recognised at all Pilates studios. So in terms of it not being through a nationally regulated system, it doesn't really matter because you will never walk into a Pilates studio who's not heard of STOTT. Plus you've got YMCA Fit as their host. The amount of hours is approximately 125, which includes 50 hours of instruction, 10 hours of observation, 40 hours of self-practice, and 25 hours of practice teaching. There's usually about 10 days face-to-face plus your assessments, and the cost of this one, we're getting a little bit more expensive now, is £1,995. The bulk of your course is going to be in person, but you do have some support resources online, and they do have multiple cohorts and dates throughout the year, but again, you have to go in with their cohort. It is not a flexible pace or self-study pace. STOTT is good for if you particularly favour that method because they do have their own unique method, and it is also good if you know that you want to do the bulk of your work as working abroad or doing retreats, because you're going to find work anywhere. Well, in principle, you'll find work anywhere because they will recognise that body. You're not going to have to go through different sort of international regulating bodies to prove that your certification is valid because the studio will recognise it off the bat. Go for Polestar and BASI together because both of these, from my research, you have to do the MAT and Reformer together, which is going to make the bundle a little bit more expensive and the hours a little bit more. If you want to do both as a package, if you haven't got your MAT yet, then it's not going to make too much difference price and time wise. It's just you have to stick with the same school to do both. BASI and Polestar, they both sit at around £2,200 each with about 220 hours for a Reformer MAT linked course. It is a hybrid format, so in-person modules and online lectures and workshops. And you have multiple modules over months, so you're not necessarily going to do it all 6 weeks back to back. You'll have different ones set on different dates, like maybe once a month or every couple of months. So this is good, again, for those of you who want to go a little bit more international with it, or if you specifically like that method. Other one we're going to talk about is APPI, the Australian... I always forget what it stands for. Australian Physiotherapy and Pilates Institute. Now, the massive pro of this one is the price. It is £500 for the Reformer, including the VAT. You do still need to have your MAT to go onto it as a prerequisite, but that is a massive saving of at least £250. So if the financial aspect is a ringer for you, then it is worth considering. However, there are some things to consider. Number one is that it is a 6-day in-person course, plus obviously your mat, and you have to do it all in person. It is a little bit difficult to find on their website who they are accredited by. On the actual website of EMD UK, so the UK body for group exercise, APPI is listed as offering accredited programs via EMD. It is also a very recognised system throughout the world, so specifically UK, Australia and the US are really recognised. But in terms of your insurance provider, you might need to check. It is a little bit different with group exercise than it is to say PTs, because group exercise, it covers as well different sports, and some sports are way less regulated and formatted than say Pilates or even your PT, which is very, very regulated. I do it within inverted commas. We know that what I mean by regulated. I would say if you are really considering APPI, maybe just contact a few local studios and ask them. Maybe look into the insurance providers you're considering going with. So the one I use is Insure for Sport, and I can read you what it said when I looked it up. Insure for Sport can provide insurance for Pilates instructors provided their qualification is recognised by a UK governing body for Pilates. So a governing body for Pilates would be something like SIMSPA or a related Pilates specific association. So it's kind of a little bit unclear, because I don't know if they're considering APPI to be recognised in and of itself. My insurance provider that I actually use, it generally requests certificates from course providers endorsed by SIMSPA for personal training, but the specific requirements for Pilates may vary, and they cover many sports on the condition that the instructor is qualified to a minimum standard as recognised by a UK national sport governing body. So because APPI is internationally recognised, often used in rehabilitation settings, it might actually align, and as we said, it has got some accredited courses through some examining bodies. So that one, it is a little bit, you're going to have to do your own research if that's the one that's going for. If you do want me to try and make a video specifically about them, do leave a comment and I will do some more research and do that contacting. But yeah, the final one we're going to talk about is the Club Pilates teacher training. Now, this isn't big at all in the UK, but it is massive in the US, and I think it is going to start to become a bit bigger in the UK, and it is going to open up a lot of opportunities for instructors in the more comprehensive method. So that's why we're going to take a look at it now. Now, it doesn't actually offer just mat or just Reformer. You have to do their 400-hour comprehensive, which is going to train you on all of the equipment. On the educations in the US, which is similar over in the UK, is going to be about 150 hours of online learning and then 66 in studio days. So 12 times 6 hours, it is a lot. Plus your 80 hours of observation, 100 hours of self-practice, 70 practice teaching, and 30 for assistant teaching. Now, Club Pilates is a massive franchise and they've got a lot of venues and they will facilitate all of that. So it is not like you're going to have to go start emailing like you did for work experience to other studios. The studio will facilitate that as part of the education, and that is something that is so invaluable to get those practice teaching hours to really, really get you down with the feedback. Cost of that one is going to be about £3,000 to £4,000. They often do discounts at Club Pilates, both for memberships and everything, so like that. And then it is rolling intakes, because in the UK it is so small, it is not going to be regular, but it is going to be one to look out for. So since we're here in November 2025, I'm thinking 2026, 27, if we are still watching this, we might be seeing a few more of them. The pro of this is you are very much going to be able to get work at the end of it within a Club Pilates studio. They really want to foster their instructors. But the con that some people argue is you're really training to be one of their instructors rather than an instructor in other studios. You can say that if you want, you're still certified to teach in the other studios. So I personally don't necessarily agree with that argument, because if you're taught to do the Club Pilates method and you're insured to teach at other studios, you've essentially gotten a lot more hours in education than some of these 60-hour ones. So take that one how you want. That was a lot to take in. We're going to summarize a little bit by bit. So you've got your short UK accredited, I'm going to call these add-ons, where you're not really deep diving into technique. It is just essentially getting you the piece of paper so that you can do more of the learning on the job. So this is going to be your HFE, diverse trainers, potentially your Drummond, your LPA, and maybe 10, where it's 60 to 130 hours. It is faster and cheaper, and it's enough to get yourself insured and start teaching, but you do have to put in those extra hours of self-driven practice if you really, really want to become like an amazing instructor. Then you've got your mid to high depth hybrid. Some of these are going to cross over. Drummond full diploma, you've got your 10 8-day education, and you've got your LPA 127 hours, which has got a little bit more structure and clearer expectations, and there's a bit more in-person practice as well as the self-practice. And then you've got your heavyweight in courses, which is going to be your BASI, your STOTT, your Club Pilates, and your Polestar, where it's going to be upwards of 125 hours. It's going to be a lot more cost, a lot more commitment, but it is better, one, if you want to teach through those particular types of studios. So there are STOTT only studios, there are BASI only studios, and there are going to be a lot more Club Pilates studios. And also, if you see yourself as having more of a long-term career where you want to work abroad, then they can be worth it as well. A little bit of perspective on online versus in person. I would always say if you can go in person, like, why wouldn't you? The online, I like that it exists because there are people who just can't and need that flexibility, but they are going to put in the hours. But it's not there for people who just kind of want to have the piece of paper and don't want to take it seriously. It is those people who are the ones who give the wellness and the fitness industry a bad name because they don't have a clue what they're talking about and they're trying to get a quick buck. And it can be a little bit frustrating because if the person is good at sales, they're going to get by anyway. And then eventually they're going to get clients who are getting injured or aren't getting the treatment they should, but they have this online certified instructor that has never done Reformer before, and that is their impression of what Reformer is, and it just ruins it for everyone. Blended is a very, very good option because obviously we've all got lives, we've all got jobs. Not all of us are going to have the luxury of taking all of that time off to go to an in-person course, especially if we've got other commitments, whether it's a job or children, something like that. But you have got those in-person hours that are kind of keeping you focused, structured, on track, and motivated to do the online as well. I want to talk a little bit about the independent education. So the one run by your local studio or educator. Sometimes they're accredited, so they are mapped to Active IQ, YMCA, or one of the other ones I've mentioned, or some of them are non-accredited. Now, the pros of the independent or the boutique trainings are they're often going to be smaller groups and you're going to get a lot more one-on-one mentorship. And usually the reason for going for that studio is that you've already got a relationship with it, whether it be that you're local or it's where you've trained. Often it's also taught by people who are actively in the industry. Some of the bigger ones, the instructors teaching you haven't actually taught a group class in the last 10 years, whereas the ones who are educating you at these boutiques and independent ones, they are running that studio, they are teaching the classes, they are very up to date with what real clients and studios want. They can also be a little bit more inclusive or niche. So some are going to lean more towards neurodivergent clients, maybe body diversity, chronic pain. So if you have a special interest, maybe that's what drew you to Pilates, then you can get that specificity as well. The things to look out for are if there's no recognized accreditation, some insurers are not going to accept it, and the quality is going to be variable. So if it is your local studio, you know the instructor, you love that method and you're planning on teaching there, then I don't see a reason why not. A lot of the time they are also going to offer you the work, like they'll maybe invite to mentor you, and that is what I actually did over in Sweden. However, I have suffered firsthand the implications of not having the qualifications on paper when I moved country. So it can be a good way to kind of get into the industry, especially if they are mentoring you one-on-one, maybe even for free. Just bear in mind it might be worth trying to get the paper over time, or even advising your studio to get the accreditation. So not all Reformer Pilates qualifications are created equally. Different life circumstances, different budgets are going to lend better to different qualifications. Hopefully that has helped some of you. If you haven't already watched my previous video on this topic, give it a watch. And then I will see you next time.